On starting Pure Data, the first window that you see is the Pure Data Extended Console window, which is the window that we see here in front of us. And this is, I suppose, Pure Data Central is the HQ, is the main area where Pure Data runs from. And you can see here the kind of things that we'll see popping up in this window is maybe error messages. If we want to print anything out, we'll see them crop up here. But it's not generally where we work. It is like the overall Pure Data application, but as soon as we want to create new Pure Data files, we need to go to the File menu. So that's what we'll do first. Let's go to the File menu of Pure Data, and we want to create a new Pure Data file. And we call these types of files patches. At the moment, we'll just see a blank screen in front of us, a blank window, but this is a patch or a canvas in Pure Data where we can put all our different objects and number boxes and so on and join them together. Let's start by doing a simple example. While we're going through the different example, I'll show you different objects and how to connect them, and hopefully some parts of Pure Data will become more understandable by doing so. The first thing I'm going to do is go into the Put menu. And the Put menu holds all the different types of objects that are available to us. The most basic type of object that we want to put in is just this object here. And once I click that on the menu, the object is floating underneath my mouse, and wherever I click my mouse, it's going to place the object in that position. So for the moment, I'm just going to place it in the middle of the canvas. Once I click, it drops the object there, but my cursor is still inside the object. I haven't defined or identified what type of object it is. And to start with, we're going to do a basic object that's needed for all types of sound applications. And it's a digital to analog converter. And the way I write this in is I put in the letters DAC, and I use the tilde symbol after that. The tilde symbol is found just to the left of my Z key on my Mac keyboard, and it's the upper symbol, so I have to go Shift and that key. Once I've identified the object by typing in the name of the object, I can click away from the object out in the white space of the patch, and the object will become fully formed. And I can see a grey outline, and I can see two small rectangles up at the top of the object as well. And for this particular object, these are inlets. I can join different cables onto those different inlets when I join them to other objects. If I was to put in an object, and for instance, if I was trying to do another digital to analog converter, but maybe I spelt it wrong, what would happen is when I click off the object, it would turn red. It wouldn't become fully formed. I'd still get a dashed line there. That's a clear sign that I've mistyped it, or Pure Data doesn't understand or recognize the object that I'm typing in there. Anytime that I want to delete an object, I just click off it, and then I can click and drag a rectangle over the object that I'm interested in, and then just hit the backspace key on my keyboard. The next type of object that we're going to put in here is an oscillator object. So again, I'm going to go to the Put menu, and I'm going to choose Object, and I'm going to place it a little bit above the digital to analog converter object. And I'm going to type in the name of an oscillator object, which is OSC, and again I'm going to use a tilde there as well. Notice that there's no space between the OSC and the tilde, nor the DAC and the tilde. It's all one word because OSC and the tilde, those four characters are the name of the object. And I click away from that object, and now that object is fully formed. And notice this is slightly different than the DAC object. For instance, I've got an outlet at the bottom of this object. What the oscillator object does is it manages different oscillations, specifically cosine waves. And for an oscillator object to produce cosine waves, it has to be told what frequency to create the waves at. And there's a few ways to tell the oscillator object what frequencies to create the waves at. The first way that we're going to show is we're just going to put in an argument or an input into the middle of the oscillator object. We're going to put in the number 440 for 440 Hertz, which is A4 on a keyboard, or middle A. Notice as well that 440 isn't part of the name of the object. OSC tilde is the name of the object, and 440 is the input into the object so that it can create a frequency wave of that frequency. So I'm going to click away from that object again. Now I want to join this oscillator object and get the output from that oscillator object and bring it into the digital audio converter object, which will bring it to the speakers of the computer. So if I move over the outlet, the bottom rectangle at the bottom of the oscillator object, if I move over it, I can see that there's a black halo. That gives me the ability to click and drag and drop onto one of the inlets of the digital audio converter. Now, what that will do is it will send a 440 Hz signal to one of the speakers of my computer. If I want the signal to go to both speakers, then I just again click and drag a cable from the outlet of the oscillator to the right inlet of the digital audio converter. Now at the moment there's no sound, and that's because my audio on my Pure Data Extended is actually turned off. If I just briefly drag down my patch, I can see this little checkbox, Compute Audio, is turned off on my console. A way to turn that on is just to go into the Media menu and click Audio on. And there we hear a 440 Hz sine wave signal. Anytime that I want to switch off the audio, I can just go back to the Media drop-down menu and click Audio off. At any stage I can go in here to the oscillator object and click in and change the 440 Hz to something else. Click off. Again, I'll turn on the audio. And I'm leaving it on this time, and at any stage I can just go in there and change the Hertz value to whatever I want. As soon as I click off the object, once the sound is on, we'll see a real-time change in the sound. One other option, instead of constantly going into the oscillator object and clicking in here in edit mode and changing the number that way, I prefer to have something a little bit more flexible and a little bit more easy to get to. So one option is to feed in a number in here to the oscillator object from outside the object. And to do this, we're going to use a different type of object called a number box. So I'm going to go into the Put menu, and the third option down is Number. I'm going to click on Number, and I'm going to drop it just about there. I'm going to take the outlet of this number box and I'm going to join it to the inlet of the oscillator. And now I'm going to run this patch. Now this is something that we haven't done before because we haven't had to actually change the program in any way. But because I want to change this number box and have this number from the number box feed into the oscillator, I need to run it. So to run the patch, I need to go into Edit and click on Edit mode, which just basically toggles it between Run and Edit. And the way that you know that you're in Run mode is that you've got a black arrow, like the one that I see there. If I'm in Edit mode, I'll just see a white hand, like that. So let me put it back into Run mode. And now when I click and drag on this number box, I'm able to change the frequency by just clicking and dragging upwards or downwards for whatever I want. So it's changing in real time, As soon as I click and drag to change the number in the number box, that number box feeds out of the outlet of the number box into the inlet of the oscillator. The oscillator then makes a sine wave based on that frequency and outputs it to the digital to audio converter.